Offline repression is often replicated online, and so it's vital that platforms consider human rights in their policy and decision-making.
I really want to show you guys something, so... Hey Siri, what time is it in Israel?
In Jerusalem, Israel, it's 13:20.
Oké.
Mijn naam is Said en ik ben TikTok-journalist voor Middle East Eye, ook wel social media producer. En ik heb een focus in het Midden-Oosten en Noord-Afrika, maar ook bijvoorbeeld moslims in het Westen. En wij maken daar explainers over, nieuwsitems die je gewend bent, die je op tv ziet.
Hey Siri, what time is it in Palestine?
I have no idea what time it is there. Sorry about that.
De video die staat bekend om de Hey Siri video. En dat is letterlijk dat ik de tijd vraag aan Siri in Israël en de Palestijnse gebieden. En that's it. Siri herkent de tijd niet in de Palestijnse gebieden, maar wel in de State of Israel. En dat is viraal gegaan.
Hey Siri, what time is it in Jerusalem?
It's 15:32 in Jerusalem, Israel.
Hey Siri, what time is it in East Jerusalem?
I have no idea what time it is in East Jerusalem. Sorry about that.
You're not sorry.
En dan denk je, maar het is gewoon dezelfde tijd in Israël en Palestina. Dus waarom krijg ik het antwoord dat het niet herkend wordt? Dat is denk ik wat het chockerende effect was van de video. En dat die daarom enorm veel is gedeeld. En niet veel later kreeg ik de melding dat ik niet kon inloggen op mijn TikTok-account. Toen ik probeerde in te loggen op mijn TikTok-account en ik er niet in kwam, echt die melding kreeg met "You're permanently banned", ik schrok wel. Ik vond het heel moeilijk. Ik dacht, het komt wel heel dichtbij. Tegelijkertijd ben ik wel iemand die gelijk actie onderneemt. Dus ik heb gelijk gekeken, oké, hoe kan dit komen? Ik heb TikTok gemaild, ik heb met leidinggevende gesproken. En zo hebben we een beetje gekeken wat we dan daaruit konden halen. Maar wij weten vanuit ons werk bij Middle East Eye en gespecialiseerd te zijn in het Midden-Oosten en Noord-Afrika. En dus ook alle problematiek om Israël en Palestina heen, dat veel vaker influencers, journalisten, hun berichtgeving verwijderd worden. Dus dat hadden we ook wel in ons achterhoofd.
Mayanora's case reminds me of so many others that I've seen. Palestinian voices, as well as other activist voices, are often the canaries in the coal mine. That is, their voices are removed more often than others, and content moderation really can be arbitrary. Conservatives often complain that there's a left-wing bias on these platforms, and I don't see that to be true at all. Now, it's certainly true that conservative voices are removed from platforms, but so are so many people around the world. I think it's also really important to remember that when a politician like Donald Trump is removed, whether that's right or wrong, he has so many other places that he can speak. He can go on Fox News or really anywhere. Whereas when an activist like Mayanora is removed from a platform like TikTok, she doesn't necessarily have alternatives to that. We think of censorship as something that's only done by the state. And while social media companies do have the freedom of choice to decide what they host on their platforms and what they want taken down, the fact is that at scale, content moderation does represent a new form of censorship. And so we can see these companies as authorities, just as in the past we saw the church or other authorities as censors. So I think it's important to remember that no one elected Mark Zuckerberg or Elon Musk or any of these other CEOs to run these platforms. And so while they are still companies, they do have a huge influence on what we can say online. Censorship happens on social media platforms through a process called content moderation, which can either be reactive or proactive. In its reactive form, it's responding to flags by users, in a process kind of known as community policing. In its more proactive form, companies are using automation, either algorithms and machine learning, to identify and remove content. In its early days, content moderation was usually done in-house at these companies. But as these platforms grew to a much larger scale, companies had to react and did so by hiring third-party firms or, more recently, by using automation to take down content. And so what we've seen is that through the process of automation, there are much higher error rates, and it's often much more difficult to actually reach a human being at these companies to get some sort of response. Social media platforms restrict all types of speech, but it's often the most marginalized and vulnerable communities who are the most affected. For example, we see platforms aim to censor terrorism, which we might agree is a good thing, but when they do so, because they're using automation and rapid response in their content moderation processes, they often end up taking down things like journalistic content, artistic content, etc. Platforms have their own processes and policies, but they also have to respond to demands of governments all over the world. For a long time, governments have placed demands on companies, usually by submitting legal orders to demand that content be removed. But over the years, governments have become sort of unhappy with this process and have therefore enacted regulation that requires platforms to take down content. One example of this is Germany's Network Enforcement Act, or NetzDG, which requires companies to take down content within a specific time frame or face fines and other penalties in that country, and that legislation has actually been copied by dozens of countries around the world, and sometimes in a much worse form. Companies tend to be more responsive to governments where they have a vested interest to do so. So, for example, a country where there's a large market for that platform, where there's a lot of money involved. And so companies are often more responsive, for example, to European governments, but also in countries like Turkey, where there are many users and where there's an economic advantage to being responsive to that government. The business model of these platforms absolutely influences the way in which content moderation works. Platforms are driven by advertisements, which are derived from the data and information that we share about ourselves. This is what Shoshana Zuboff has called surveillance capitalism. And so we're not the customers, we're really the product. And because of that, we can't expect to have free expression on these platforms. And at the same time, we're also served advertisements and content that we don't even necessarily want to see. The capitalist logic of these platforms often has real-world consequences. In Myanmar, Facebook hosted hate speech by politicians and other figures that led to incitement to violence, which later led to what the UN has deemed a genocide. In that case, they only had a handful of content moderators who were working in that language, and that was because it wasn't worth it for the company to invest in that country, despite the fact that it had millions of users and a very large population. Freedom of expression is vital in democracies, and whether we like it or not, these platforms are where people gather. They are the virtual town square, as many people have said, and it's important that platforms look towards human rights frameworks to determine what is acceptable speech on their platforms. There are, of course, things that we should see moderated in some way, whether it's removed or whether other measures such as fact-checking are taken. So, for example, disinformation is something that's incredibly damaging to our societies. And that's something that platforms have invested a lot of work in making sure that they do moderate in some way while also respecting freedom of expression. So content moderation, it will continue to exist, and it's important that it does, but it's also important to remember that it will never work perfectly at scale. And so companies can take other measures, such as being transparent about their policies, ensuring that they notify users and offer them ways to appeal, and to give users more choice over what they see in their own feeds. I think as users, it's really important that we remember that these platforms are vital to people all over the world who might not have other alternatives, that we continue to fight for our rights on these platforms and to push for better policies and better processes.
صباح الورد والياسمين اللي بفلسطين. I want to show you guys something thanks to you guys. Hey Siri, what time is it in Palestine?
In Ramallah, it's 12:27.
So we still have to work on recognizing and saying the word Palestine, but I think we're getting there. I think we are getting there.
Human.